My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a member of Northland's Social Inclusivity and Equity Board. That stands for DICE, and we're so excited to have our queer identity panel. So really, this is going to be an opportunity for you to hear from me along with other panelists from the city of Northland to discuss our personal experiences with our gender identity, expression, and also our sexual orientation, while also looking at the intersection of race and ethnicity. We think this is a great opportunity for you to learn, be able to educate yourselves, and then also just share the knowledge with those around you. A few reminders for tonight are we are recording this event, and so we're hoping that you all can turn off your cameras and your mics unless you're asking a question during the audience time when we're allotting time for you to ask the panelists questions. And then if you are on video, you can ask those questions in the chat. And then if it's on the phone, we encourage you to dial *6 to be able to ask those questions. And so I just want to do another reminder as well that we're here really to celebrate Pride Month and really the lives of queer folks in our community and to provide education and understanding to some of the challenges that we also face. And so now I'm going to introduce City of Northland Council Member, Dr. Catherine Goff, who will discuss the City of Northland strategic plan and also our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So welcome, Dr. Goff.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. I'm glad that we have this opportunity. And I just wanted to mention that we do have another council member, Julie Duran-Mullica, is participating here tonight as well. Our city council is very supportive of our diversity board. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that she's here. So Deja mentioned our strategic plan. So Northland, the city of Northland has a strategic plan, and that plan includes 8 priority areas, and one of them is maintaining and celebrating our diverse community. So one of the city's objectives in this area was to create a diversity, inclusivity, and social equity board. And this 11-member volunteer board was created by city ordinance in August of 2020. And I'm very happy to be the city council member that participates in this talented and dedicated group of people. The City of Northland supports the work of this board and has given us the staff and funds for Pride Yard signs. You've probably seen some of those. This Pride panel discussion tonight, and the Pride celebration that we will be having on June 26th. And we have also been supported by Adams County, and I am happy to introduce Adams County Commissioner Emma Pinter, who is with us here tonight.
Well, I tried to get a little pride in my background just to celebrate you all a little bit. Hello, I am Emma Pinter, pronouns she, her, hers. Happy to be here supporting all of you in Northland. I think the genesis of Adams County attempting to support Northland in these efforts came because community members reached out to me at the county and said, we need to do a Pride celebration. And I said, yes, because we always drive to Denver or Boulder and we don't have our own celebration. And brought it to my team at Adams County, and they were more than happy to contribute. And we're proud at Adams County to be sponsoring. Let me get our sponsorship right. We're sponsoring the Silent Disco coming up at the main festival Saturday, June 26th. We in Adams County are trying to always roll out that rainbow carpet for all of our community members to make sure that everyone feels welcome. We have some painted crosswalks at all of our government facilities, our employee entrances, and out front at Human Services, Government Center, and our animal shelter. We are doing a Pride Proclamation, and we were the first county in the state of Colorado to be recognized 2 years in a row from the Human Rights Campaign for our You Are Welcome Here program, which certifies our Human Services Department as an LGBTQ welcoming and affirming agency and recognized as an innovator in supporting and serving LGBTQ youth and family seal from Human Rights Campaign. And just want to let you all know we in local government are working really hard to make sure that all members of our community feel welcome. Everything from changing our building code to be non-gendered and to provide as many gender-neutral bathrooms as possible. Back in the day when I was on Westminster City Council, I framed this to my colleagues as a deregulation of our bathrooms. Why do we need to regulate them and tell them who they are? Let's have deregulated bathrooms. And you know, this is something that's been in my heart for a really long time, and working with my community members. And many of you know State Rep Brianna Titone. She first came to the Westminster City Council years before she was a state rep, and we were the first city council back in the day when I served on Westminster to pass a proclamation on conversion therapy and banning conversion therapy. And so I just want you to know that your city councils are working on this. Northland is tooting their own horn a little bit tonight, and we love to be able to do that. But fundamentally, we know it's a long road. We know there's a long journey ahead, and how we approach our community really matters, both for your safety and for our community safety. And so also here to listen and learn, and thank you to all the panelists who are going to be sharing their stories, and I can't wait to celebrate with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner Pinter. It's so nice to see the work that you're doing and that you continue to do this work and advocacy for our community. And, you know, like you said, the fight continues. I'm so glad Thornton City Council just decided to show the pride flag, and through efforts of advocating with, you know, members of the DICE board, Dr. Goff, also Celeste, and myself too being present, we were able to get that change. So yeah, we're excited to continue the work. Before we go into our panel, I thought it'd be really important for us to establish some ground rules. So I do ask all of you to stay engaged, listen for understanding, and please be respectful of the panelists' pronouns and also the stories that you do hear. I like to keep the motto, what stays in Vegas is, you know, is here. So, or what happens in Vegas stays here. So yeah, kind of the similar stance. And we ask that, you know, when you do ask questions, just be considerate, and then do allow other folks to be able to participate in this process. Does anyone have any questions or wants to add to the ground rules? Yeah, if you're on video, you can raise your hand or ask in the chat box. Ooh, I think Valerie, you raised a good point. Oh, is that for Emma? Okay. So Commissioner Pinter, someone asked, how can other cities in Adams County get similar diversity, inclusion, equality committees going?
Hey, sorry about that. I was walking over to invite my kiddos to join, and I stepped away from my desk. I was like, "Hey, like while we're cooking dinner, let's get our gather together to listen to our panel." So, if I could ask for your grace and hear the question again.
Yeah. So Valerie asked, how can other cities outside of Northland and Adams County get similar DEI committees?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, I think not to volunteer, Catherine, but I'm going to volunteer you. When I was on the Westminster City Council, we formed the first ever Inclusivity Task Force and then transitioned it into a permanent board. And I'm happy to share my experience with any of you on what that looked like. So we did that about 5 years ago. And I got to tell you, like, I'm just gonna chat for a minute. Like, there were members of our city council who didn't want that to happen. And normally our city council interviews are held in council chambers, and it's a big deal. And they put us in the basement. In the basement, and the full council did not attend the interviews to staff our first inclusivity task force, which turned into a full committee within the city. But we persisted, and we were like, this is a voice that is missing from our community, and it is necessary both in conversations about community, what programs we offer, access to city services, as well as policing and safety. And there's a variety of topics that end up coming forward. Happy to share that story of like how we came to be in Westminster. We have a similar committee internally with Adams County. It's called our A-Proud for Adams, our A-Proud team. Happy to share that with all of y'all. And I yeah, I'll put my work email in the chat. I think everyone can see it, and then I'd be happy to share anything with all of y'all.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Pinter. And then Dr. Goff, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I would just say that it does help any community to have more community participation, so that if the residents in your community or your town are actively involved and engaged in what's going on with city council, of the elections, hiring of staff. I mean, it's one of the, as I mentioned before, strategic goals for our city plan. And we've got a lot of them, and so it's sometimes hard to prioritize or know when to do what. And I think in this past year, there's been a lot of discussion about social justice movements, and I think we had a lot of people from our community speaking to that, and that was inspiration or motivation or something for our city council to really put this as a top priority and get it put in place. And so that's really all I could give us in terms of advice is, be involved, be engaged, speak up at your city council meetings, and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Goff. And someone asked too, just with questions around joining the DICE board. So I think there will be opportunities once our terms are ended for folks to be able to apply and then go through the interview process and get selected. So be on the lookout for that. I do want us to transition though to the panel. I think we have some exciting folks present that will share their experiences along with myself. So I want to go ahead and introduce a few of them and then also allow them the opportunity to introduce themselves and who they are. So for our panelists tonight, it'll include myself, Chase, Janice, Victoria Bull, Sam Tun, and then also Nix. So we're so excited to have everyone here. And I will turn it over to Chase. Chase, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Deja. Aukolas wopila tonka ichishea. Olowan wapia mie. Nape chizio zape lo. Basically, I was saying, hello, friends. Thank you for having me here to speak about myself. My name is Olowan Wapia, which means medicine song, but you can just call me Chase. And I greet you with a warm hand. I am a registered member of the Oglala Lakota tribe with my family coming from Pine Ridge Reservation, and I'm also a descendant of Irish immigrants, so that's why I look like this. But yeah, I'm so glad to be here today to share my experiences. I am non-binary and queer, and I use they them pronouns. Who's next? Who should we introduce next?
Bull, yeah, Victoria Bull.
You can call me Bull, Deja. I am Victoria Bull. My pronouns are she and her. I taught Deja in high school, not 100 years ago, 50 years ago now. No, Deja's not that old. I'm not that old. So I teach social studies at Northland High School. I identify as queer. My wife is also a teacher at Northland High School. She is an English teacher and she's in the call somewhere in here. She and I are both the GSA sponsors at Northland High School. I've been the GSA sponsor, and we call it our Gender and Sexualities Alliance now. It was started as Gay Straight Alliance, and it went through many morphing names because of some pushback on the gay part of Gay Straight Alliance, and we reclaimed that, and then we turned it into Gender and Sexualities Alliance to broaden it as well. And so I've been doing that for 20 years, and my wife has been co-sponsor with me for 8 years, I believe. And that's me. I teach social studies, government, economics, and just try to tell lots of good jokes.
Yeah, thanks, Bull. And now I'd like to introduce Sam, and Sam is also a youth at Northland High School.
Hello, hello. My name's Samuel, but Sam's totally fine, of course. And I am as Deja introduced me, I'm one of the youth spokespeople for this specific panel, and I identify as a bisexual trans man that's been in this process for most of my life at this point. So, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. And now I'd like to introduce Nix, who is also a youth at Northland High School.
Is my mic working?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Hi, my name is Nix. I go by they, them, their pronouns, and yes, I'm a youth at Northland, and it's a pleasure to be here last minute as a panelist. And I identify as trans non-binary and bisexual. So yes, very nice to meet you all.
Yeah, thanks, Nix. And for everyone too on the call, so as I said earlier, I'm Deja. I was born and raised in Northland, and I currently live in Thornton though. But I identify as an Afro-Hispanic trans woman of color, so I'm happy to be here and also share that experience. So I want us to go into the first question. How do you all live authentically as just, as a queer person in the world? And we could, anyone could start and we could just bounce from there.
I can start first, but all right. So how I live authentically is that, like I mentioned, I've been on this trip for most of my life, ever since I was in kindergarten, where like I will repeat this as many times as I have to, but ever like I've shown signs of like kind of rejecting my assigned sex at birth, because when I was younger I never liked wearing dresses, which was super odd because like you're a kid, you don't really know like why you're like it's just fabric, you don't know why, you just hate it so much. And as I grew up, I just began realizing that like I really liked presenting masculinely. And my old self, like I used to present as like a tomboy, quote unquote, but it wasn't until the later stages of middle school where I was like finally actually realizing that I might be transgender, because it's not really talked about as someone young, because like yes, there were panels like this possibly, but when it comes to young people, there wasn't a GSA for middle schoolers, or even like anyone. Like I barely heard of it when I got into high school. And so I just started using like my preferred name, the different pronouns, to see how it is. And honestly, like I like as a trans man, I really haven't been able to see myself in a future where I present feminine or something like that. Like, yes, I have long hair and jewelry and all that, but in my opinion, that shouldn't be gendered. And it's just like, I want to live as someone where it's like, yes, I present masculinely, but also to break the rules of like, of conformism, where I don't want clothes and like materialistic objects to be gendered, because wholeheartedly I think that's incredibly dumb. But like every day, like I get misgendered a lot because of the way that I present, and like because I've only started recently taking testosterone, I haven't gotten the major changes yet, and my voice isn't like, it's not too high, but it's not that deep. But like someone would be like, oh hey, misgender, yada yada yada, and it's like, yes, it bothers me personally when that happens, because I'm a trans man who has dysphoria specifically, and it's just like every single day. It's like I either have instances of dysphoria where it just like gets into my business, or I just have gender euphoria where I feel actually normal in my skin. And like there are people out there, like trans people, that have like no dysphoria but still identify as trans. And it's like my belief is that, hey, if you get euphoria from being referred to as another pronoun or as another gender entirely, then like that's what it means to be trans. And every single day, that's how I live, because no matter what anyone says about me or to me, etc., it's just that if I can still get that euphoria as a queer person, then that's how I can breathe easy and everything like that.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. That was amazing. Yeah. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I can jump in. So I've been at this a while. So it's interesting. I agree with Samuel. So this whole concept of, having an open dialogue about gender and sexualities. I graduated from, and I am going to date myself, I graduated from high school in 1993. And I don't think we had, quote unquote, one queer person. And you didn't use the word queer back then. I think you just said gay. So that's expanded since my time. Obviously, there wasn't zero queer people in my high school, but there's plenty of them. But as a teacher, that was one of the things I struggled with when I first started teaching. I first started teaching when I was a youngin' at 22, and I was out by then. I knew I was gay and I was out, but there was not so the laws that protected folks from being discriminated against or fired or whatever the case was weren't as strong as they are today. And there's still room to grow. So my first couple of years teaching, I kind of kept it on the down low, mostly because I was like, I didn't want to be fired for being seen as a gay person or being, somebody finding out. When I came to North Glen, a whole new world opened, which was amazing for me. So it was open, folks were open. And ever since I got to North Glen and I established the GSA at North Glen, I haven't held back in terms of my authenticity. I've grown into it a lot more over the course of time. I've been there for 20 years, so I've grown into it in terms of what I have up in my classroom and what I talk about in my classroom. But definitely currently, if you walked in my classroom, you would see you see all the flags, but on the wall, like trans flag, the pride flag, I have a whole cup of all the flags. I have lots of trans and non-binary folks on the walls, queer folks on the walls. I talk about, my wife all the time. I talk about Ms. Brown all the time. We do GSA together. And there's not much that I hold back in terms of my, in terms of like my authenticity. And that's less for me because I'm an old lady. I won't say I'm an old lady, but I'm older and I'm pretty secure in who I am and what I believe. But I think it's really important for the people around me to be able to see that for a number of reasons. If the students identify differently, gender, sexuality, I want them to see that there's somebody there that can be there with them, support them, take them through whatever journey they have to go through. I also want to see the students that might identify as cisgender and straight to see that as well, that it's not some like weird or abnormal thing. It's not normal. I want them to, it just incorporated into their life. Same with the adults. Any adults that, I don't want to have people around me be like, I've never met a trans person or a gay person, because I'm gonna be like, yes, you have. So that's one of the ways that I kind of live authentically, is just put it all out there and try to be there for those folks and just be a person that those folks know is even if they don't come to me and be like, I need to talk to you about whatever, just being there, hopefully that helps them, gives them, you know, something to kind of grab onto, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Does anyone else want to add to the conversation?
I'll go. I agree with both of you. You guys are awesome. I especially loved the part about material items as being connected to gender, like capitalism, man, it's taken over everything. But I was just gonna say that for me, definitely presentation has been important, like the ability to be able to express like who you are inside through your physical body, to be able to wear and do whatever you want. That was definitely a struggle when I was younger. I also think that one of the most important ways that I've lived authentically is to surround myself with people who aren't just like okay with the fact that I'm queer, but who love me and who embrace that and who want to know more. So yeah, I think in situations like this as well, being able to speak up and to talk about sexuality and gender, especially when they may not be ones that people are familiar with, ones that are kind of outside that binary of man and woman. And yeah, I'm just very, very proud to be, so this is a flag, I didn't make it. The yellow stands for being non-binary, the blue is masculinity, the pink is femininity, and through the middle, running through it all, is native blood. This is like a newer two-spirit flag that I really latched onto because it's like perfect for me. And then lastly, I was just going to say that I found out today that I'll be able to go on to hormones soon. So yay. And that definitely has been a long time coming for me as well. And it'll be a slower process than I think like some binary trans people go through. But yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, thanks, Chase, and thank you so much for being vulnerable and just sharing like your culture with us. That's amazing. Yeah, I want to invite Nix too. Nix, do you want to add anything?
Yes, of course. It's very last minute, and my thoughts are all jumbled. So sorry for that. But like, ever since a child, I don't want to make stuff up, but like I remember this one instant when I was a child. I wanted to be a boy because like I was being babysat with other kids and they wouldn't let me play with them because I wasn't a boy. And like the next day I decided I was going to be a boy because I wanted to. And like it kind of took me a while to realize that I'm not happy being referred to as a girl and such. And even just recently I've come to terms that I'm transgender because I'm not a girl. Like it says something when I like whenever like the few instances in my life that I've been mistaken as a boy, that gave me euphoria. And like that says something. Like I would rather be mistaken for a boy than a girl. So like when I first started high school, like I was like being introduced to new friends and people, and like I was being more exposed to LGBTQ terms, and like I don't really know when it started, but I started using they them pronouns. I still was fine with being referred to with she her, but like I kind of grew into it. Like I eventually ditched the she her part of me and like just came to terms that I'm non-binary, and like that makes me really happy. Like I've always thought that I needed to come out to my family, and I'm still like trying to like get that out of my head that I don't need to, because that doesn't give me the validity, because I'm already valid. Like I don't need to have acceptance from my family to have that. Like if the ones I truly love like my friends and such, if they accept me, that's what matters. But even then, like I'm just living my best life out here. And like what Sam said, having long hair and jewelry, like I like wanna like break the gender conformity that society's put on me. Like just because I have a female body, I shouldn't have to like listen to what society's telling me. Like I'm like breaking through that. But yeah.
Yes, love that. Yeah, just when you were talking, I'm just like resonating and thinking about my own journey too. And I'll share a little bit as well. So I think for me, I've always struggled with gender and then also just sexuality and what that meant to me. Growing up, I was always taught like you need to be like the man of the house. You know, it's like something strong and like you can't confront that. You know, and I think with religion too, it always taught me like you have to behave a certain way. You know, and I think it was in high school I saw you know, Miss Bull, and I was like, oh my God, like there's a queer person out, but I couldn't grapple with it. You know, I didn't think it was acceptable. You know, I thought it's still something that it's just like, you don't do this, you know? And I was just taught that. And then it wasn't until I went to college that I decided to be honest with myself, you know, and then I came out as gay. And I explored that. I was like, wow, this is what it's like to be with like another guy at the same time that's of the same sex. And from there, I think though, I knew there was a little bit more than just my sexuality at that time. I still was grappling with my femininity and trying to express that and what that looked like. So it wasn't until last year with my boss, who was gender not conforming at the time, or it still is, and they expressed to me like, you know, there's more identities beyond just male and female. And I was like, what? Like, this is a thing? Like, no way. And I was like, what does it mean to be like gender non-conforming and non-binary? And I think when they really understood and really told me like, I don't conform to one gender identity, and I have masculine traits, I have feminine traits, and even more beyond that. And I started to realize I can be someone just beyond just the binary, you know, what we're taught. And so I opened myself to be non-binary. And again, more, I think the more feminine presenting I became, I was like, there's still more. And so I talked with other trans women in the community, and I was like, I think I'm trans, but like from a kid, I knew I liked being feminine. I just didn't think like it meant like I wanted to be a girl, like shift my whole gender, you know? And when I talk with other trans women though in the community, and really they express like, hey, they went through a lot of the similar structures, and a lot of them come out later on. Cause I had that fear too. I was like, I'm coming out so late. You know, I'm 26 now, I was 25 last year, and I was like, it's too late for me. But no, it's not. You can come out at any time, you know, 60, 80, whatever. And so, yeah, I've just been honest since, you know, I'm trans. I love it. You know, I feel confident. There's the struggle too of what it means to be a woman and accepting that and understanding the expectations within society. But I feel so authentic in myself now, and I feel like I found myself. I've been searching for so long, and yeah, I'm happy. I'll go to our next one. And I know I talked a little bit about it, but how does race and ethnicity affect you and your identity? Yeah, go ahead, Chase.
Okay, yeah, because this one will probably be my longest one. I'll try to narrow it down. This one definitely for me is a lot. Even when I was younger, I was very liminal. Like I've always had one foot in two different cultures, two different worlds. And that's kind of followed in the same footsteps with my sexuality and my gender. Above all, I'm a student of my culture. And even though I've always felt like I was queer, none of like the labels that we have today, like the Western labels, really fit me perfectly. And I couldn't really understand why until I began to explore my culture more, until I began to question those labels of, you know, man, woman, gay, straight, everything in between. And I finally realized why nothing really fit. It's because colonialism kind of meant that I was being put into these boxes. Because even though colonialism may have happened like a while ago, its effects are still continuing on and still being felt heavily, and arguably colonialism is still occurring. But because of it, I was being forced to be put into these boxes, and those boxes aren't bad. It's just that none of them really fit me. And even within my culture, the categories of like what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman are different. My people are known as kind of a buffalo nation because of how sacred the bison were and are to us. And it's kind of impossible really to explain just how important they were. Like, they were life, like everything. And because people watched them so closely, they were able to kind of structure their society around them as well. Like, they observed what the buffalo did and they kind of mirrored that. And so in that way, they mirrored their gender roles as well. Yeah, so while there is a binary, you know, while there's a binary, it's definitely not the same one that is happening today, like the Western one. And even back then, there were still gender nonconforming visuals. It's just that a lot of that information has been lost. Because it's not like it was ever written down. We were not a culture that ever wrote things down. So a lot of it is outside perspective, and yeah, a lot of maybe like what I could have been, what I could have known about people who were like me, people who were female bodied, but weren't like conforming to those gender roles. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that like exists anymore. And so through a lot of angst, I've come to kind of a peace, I think, with my gender, and it's come from embracing my ethnicity and my race. So I'm not just queer, I'm indigiqueer. Like, the two are intimately connected. Two-spirit, or my favorite one is Oshteka, because it's literally just queer in Lakota. But yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Chase. Yeah, do any of our other panelists want to share?
Yes, thank you so much, Chase, for sharing that, because I like that experience. I just like wholeheartedly, just that's a bunch of new information that's like really interesting. And of course, like that's like, I just love hearing stories about how when people are like actually interpreting their own identity with one who they were like, of course you're yes, you're born as who you are, but like gender identity you just discover. But like when you intertwine like your race and all of that, it's like it's just, that feels like euphoric, I feel like, and I just really am happy with that. And that leads up to my own tale, where like I'm kind of the opposite, where I would rather not have my race intertwine with my gender identity, because with mine, I come from a Vietnamese family who are like, my parents have both grown up in the middle of the Vietnam War, which, ouch, that's not entirely like, they don't, like, they have very limited information, and they didn't have sources to, it wasn't as diverse as it is here. And so like when I came out to them, they were really baffled by the idea that I would want to transition into a man. And they were just like, oh no, it might be like they, of course, when I say this, please do not blame them. they've become better, but they sent me to a therapist, not a conversion therapist, don't worry, but just a normal therapist to see like if this is just something mental or if there's genuinely something that's like um that's that could be fixed about this. But I'm lucky to be raised in a state that is really really open about LGBT topics, and I just, as someone who is a person of color who is also transgender, like they were they were really accepting of me if I only came out to them as bisexual. But as soon as gender comes in, that's when oh, they're gonna draw the line, because like for me, I want to modify my vessel and they're really afraid that I might damage it or something like that. And it's just that like, I don't want to blame it on their race, but because of their backgrounds and all of that, they're a lot less knowledge about it. And like, I don't blame them. They're a lot more open to me being who I am now. And like, I thank them for that. But like, sometimes I just like, I don't resent them, but sometimes I just feel that like they are just mm, like barely accepting of me, because when I'm still technically a minor, and I started testosterone only like 3-ish months ago, and they were barely able to sign contracts to let me on it this young, because they were afraid that I would blame them later on. And it just living as myself, I had to convince them that even though I don't believe in this, I had to convince them that my dysphoria is like a mental thing, like a mental illness, when it's just technically it is, but in my belief it's a part of you that gets bothered. And basically like I had to do a lot of convincing and all of that. And really weird thing too, like oh boy, I'll there's a lot more details, but I'll definitely dig into it more as we go on to the questions. But basically, as a person of color who is living as a queer person in both sexuality and gender, it's really hard to see that even your own family is like, yes, they're accepting, but it's basically, as someone said before, it's basically acknowledging that I'm a human, which is just like, all right then. But I invite anyone else to the table to share their story.
Yeah, Nix or Bull, do you want to go?
I guess I can go, since like I very much relate to what Samuel said about his family and whatnot, like because I I I live in an Asian household as well. Philip, we're like, I'm a mixed child, but like for the most part my entire household is Filipino. And like, because of how my mother and her parents were raised in like a black and white world, and to put it in simple words, like my mom is still having trouble. Like the last time I talked to her about my sexuality was years ago, and the only thing I remember, what the one thing I remember her saying was, "Why can't you just go one way?" And like that really hurt me, because that's not how it works. Like, and so I just never really spoke to her about my gender or sexuality ever again about that. But like I try to, like, because of our backgrounds, I don't usually talk to my family about these kinds of topics, because like one time I was talking to my mom about a transgender person, and like we got into an argument about it, and like I was trying to defend the transgender community, not only because I am trans, but like they're humans too. Like, give them basic respect. And like, then she confronted me and she's like, "Are you trans?" And I'm like, "What's that have to do with the topic?" So like, I just kind of like avoided, like I don't need to tell my family that I'm queer, but like, it would at least help to know that they're accepting. They are accepting, like they're not homophobic or anything, but it's when it comes to gender that they're iffy. Like they still misgender people they know, like trans people that they know, and like that. Like I try to correct them, and when I do that, they like get mad at me. So like I never really thought that my race would affect my identity, but like as a person of color, like as a sorry, I can't think, but like I'm just trying to make it in this world as a person of color who's also queer, and trying to like I don't need my family's exception from that. Some of them are accepting, but it's mainly my mom for the most part because of how she was raised, and I'm really okay with that. I've come to terms with it, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Nix. You know, I think you really alluded to the challenges that we face, right, as like queer, trans people of color. You know, we have not only our queer identity, but we also have our racial and ethnic identity that also comes with expectations. And oftentimes, you know, it's like double the work, right, to be able to express ourselves, especially to our parents, you know, and really have them accept us when they're also trying to be accepted. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Bull, did you want to add?
I just want to like echo everything. So as a white woman, it's not intertwined with my queerness, and that's a privilege that, you know, I recognize that I don't have to like have like double things that I have to. So how I try to live every day is elevating the stories that like you all just told. So it is a privilege. Being white is a privilege. Being a white queer person, you're still privileged, even though you have the queer part of yourself. So I'm not going to take up a lot of this time, and I just want to have hopefully folks listen to your stories, because I want to make sure those are the stories that are elevated when it comes to what we're talking about tonight. So that's all I want to say about that.
Yeah, thank you, Bull, for saying that. And I think too, it's, you know, I have a call to action for our white folks, you know, is to give us that space and opportunity to share our stories, because it's often dismissed or not heard, you know, or it's not given the time and place like it should be. And I think too, for me, just being Afro-Hispanic, it's been really hard, you know. I don't know if anyone's seen Pose on Netflix. If you haven't, I encourage you to do so much, because it really talks to the struggles that my trans sisters have faced, you know, especially through the HIV epidemic. And still to this day is, you know, our Black and brown queer folk often are at such a high risk for HIV because of violence and stigma and racism that exists. And I think within my family too, that was a main worry. You know, my grandma's brother became HIV positive, and she had that experience, and she shared that with me. And that was her major concern with me, is she's like, you know, you're going against the eyes of God, and this is the outcome, you know, of you wanting to be who you are and express that. And I told her, no, I'm not going to be autistic. You know, I want to challenge that and work to help my communities, because it's not fair. It's not right that we go through this just to be who we are. And not to say we're a monolith either, because not, you know, everyone is impacted by HIV either, but just the struggle that our communities have faced for so long. It's really difficult. So that, I know that's been a main concern with my family. But then I think too, it's just like interracial marriage was just passed, 54 years ago. My grandma, she's Hispanic, married to my grandpa, who's Black, and she dealt with that racism, you know, as her being seen as not enough, you know. And even in the Black community, it's like, that's not something that you do. Like, Black folks be with Black folks, Hispanic folks be with Hispanic folks. You don't mix, and we don't talk about it. And so for her, she was like really like a pioneer for that, you know. And so for me, I think she endured that she didn't want me to go through a similar struggle as someone that's trans also. You know, it was one thing, I think, being gay, but then she's like, trans, you're just going to go through so much, you know, all the transphobia that's so blatant in our communities. And so we have a lot of work to do. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there so folks know. I know in the interest of time, we have like 30 minutes, and I do want people to be able to ask questions. So I'm going to go to our last one. You know, on top of the challenges that you all have faced, maybe what's one other challenge that you think it's important for people in the community to know?
Like, if I may, there's like of course I'll try and keep this simple, but basically what the main challenges is that like it really, this may seem very minor, but when people say, oh, something something he or she, instead of using the pronoun they, it's just really really annoying, because first off, it takes off more of your breath than you need to, and second, that really implies that you're still living in a binary world, because like there's a lot of people that like that they may look cis, but they're like non-binary and all of that stuff, and it's just like it should be really more regulated, that people should say just they them for every single person. Yes, they may seem feminine, but I've seen really really masculine people with like tattoos, muscles, like jawline, beard, all of that, who are actually completely non-binary identifying or gender fluid, and even though they look like this or the other, look like this or that, like literally the idea of gender conformism is from colonialism, and the like a lot of reasons why people are gendered is because of like, yeah, exactly, like the reason why like a lot of people are gendered is from the like white people's like white people separating us based on possibly like sexism and misogyny, and it's just really like you have to really be more open to that, like even like some kids like they like I used to be, I still am someone that's like, I'm not ready to be completely open. I'm open right now because I pick and choose between like where I like how where I get to be open, but in normal public, I'm afraid to just wear a he him pronoun badge, but still hate being misgendered because it's just not safe for me yet. So it really like and another reason why you should just use like they them pronouns like for everyone that you meet is because like even though I'm not out, or like some people are not out, and even though I don't use they them pronouns, when I hear people using that for me, because like using that for me in just a normal conversation, and because I don't know that they don't know that I'm a trans man, it brings some sort of euphoria where we just want each other to feel happy and to actually enjoy themselves. And so basically when you're using like gender neutral terms, it seems really really tiny, but it really helps decolonize and like have a more open space for literally everyone talking, because it's just something that we just have to normalize even more. Like no more he or she unless this person goes by he or she pronouns, but even then still like it's a case by case basis, and that's just a pet peeve, that not even a pet peeve, it's just a major annoyance that's been on my mind for a while, and I wanted to share that with all of you.
Yeah, thank you. The assumption that everyone is just cisgender, right? He or she, and that's it. There's not even an opportunity for people to be outside of that. Yeah, thank you for calling out and the need for pronoun usage, because you can't just assume who someone is based off of how they look. You need to ask someone, how do you identify? How do you want me to identify you? You know, it just goes with respect, I think, too. Like you want someone to use your name right. So why can't you use someone's pronouns right? Yeah, thanks, Sam. Anyone else want to add to some of the challenges?
I'm not gonna talk about myself. I'm kind of wrapped up in this a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit more broadly about some of the challenges that I think sometimes cisgender straight folks don't contemplate like on a daily kind of basis. So I'll use myself for an example, and then I'll go. So currently, my wife and I are going to start. We're going to start a family here within the next. I think it's on 26 this month. It's on the calendar. I just saw that. She's gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" It's on the calendar. So, and so one of the things that we have to talk about is we have to, there is family planning for everybody, but like we just can't. We have to figure out the whole sperm thing, right? So, TMI maybe, but it's like, so in terms of not just figuring it out, but like cost wise, it can cost a lot of money. Trying to find, OBGYNs and hospitals and places that are like queer friendly, and you won't be stigmatized for that. So that's like a whole thing when it comes to like health and like just taking it through the whole scenario of going through that. And then when we're done with it, like not done with it, but once the child is here, then there's a whole nother set of issues with two parents, like in terms of like we're married, but how does that look in terms of legally going on? What happens? Because if she has the child and I don't have the child, then legally going forward, is that going to present a whole nother set of issues? So that's just kind of a little piece of it. But just the health practices in general for all folks that are, especially trans folks and trans folks that are folks of color, that I think is something that is not just a challenge, but could detrimental to someone's like health, safety, and life at the end of the day. So if there's not enough folks in the health industry that understand trans issues, non-binary issues, but trans issues specifically, and then trans issues and folks of color, we know that especially Black women are treated terribly when it comes to the health industry and die at a higher rate within hospitals and everything like that. So that's just a huge one. So that's something that I think sometimes if you are a cis, especially cis straight white person, and you don't think about on the daily how scary just going to the doctor for even a simple checkup might be. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I could go on for another like 3 hours about the anti-trans sports bills that are just bananas, because they are the dumbest thing I've ever heard about in my whole entire life. So that's a whole nother roundabout.
Yeah, thank you, Bull. Parenting as someone that is queer and LGBTQ+, right? It's like the options that are available, and even with those options, the cost, right? If it's not adoption, using a sperm donor, or, IVF, it's so much, it's very expensive just to be who we are, when our cisgender counterparts, they don't have to go through that similar structure with it being so expensive. Sometimes the discrimination too that is present with foster agencies. You hit the nail right on the head. And I think too with hospital care, if it's misgendering our pronouns, telling us which bathroom we can use and what we can't use, the cost of hormones, it's so much to think about and process, that we have to think about how do we get everyone access to these resources that they might have been denied. Yeah, Nix and Chase, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I can go ahead first. I don't really face any challenges right now, and hopefully I never do, but like really what comes to mind first is just people accepting that I look like a girl, but I am non-binary, and trans too. like sometimes people aren't able to get the tools that they need to help them look like help them present how they want, like clothing and such. And luckily I live in a household where I'm able to buy the clothes I want. But like it's like just because I like have like the female body and long hair doesn't mean, like what Sam was saying, that that someone should assume how you identify as, like, and but yeah, that's all that really comes to mind.
For me, I would say that, well, I have two. I'll be quick. Cultural appropriation, especially when it comes to the term Two-Spirit. There's a lot of people who I think don't even fully understand what it means, who try to claim it. And I'm all for people choosing like their own labels. There's so many out here nowadays. But yeah, it's definitely an issue that I've run across. And lastly, maybe out of left field, but it's something that's like almost always on my mind. And I'm a queer person, so climate change. I think that is an issue that everybody should be concerned about. As a queer, indigenous, non-binary person, it gives me a lot of anxiety. And I feel like my life would be much better if there was a lot more like movement towards that. I think that the queer and trans community can be like that type of force, I guess, for good, because we know we have, like, we can get shit done when we have to. Sorry for my French. All right, go Deja, I love you.
No, and yeah, you just raised like some really great points, and I'm thinking too, like, just as trans women, like, or just in general, as like trans and non-binary, gender not conforming folks, like, people should not focus so much on our body parts and who we are, because that's such a major problem. Like, I hate how people define, oh, your womanhood based off of your body parts, your manhood based off of your body parts. It shouldn't matter. It's how I identify and what I feel safe and comfortable. You know, I think affirming all of us and accepting all of us is suicide prevention. This helps us be safe and feel comfortable in who we are. So yeah, that's my tidbit for that. I do want to open it. I know we have like 20 minutes left. So is there any question from the audience that folks may have? I see one right now, I think from Shannon. Advice for children who overcompensate being straight, whose family and parents are identifying as non-traditional.
So can I, oh, are you? So
Oh, go
I
ahead.
was gonna get some like clarification from Val and Shannon. So is it advice for the parents or advice for the kids, the children? Parents, how to help. Okay. I honestly, I don't have children yet. It's on the calendar, as I told you all. So at some point, hopefully we will. But as a teacher, what I would say is in the same, and anybody else can jump in the same realm that kids ask, or children ask their parents to kind of try to understand like what they're going through and have open communication about, you know, what's going on in their lives, why they might be presenting a certain way, or, you know, how they should, you know, who they're hanging out with, that kind of thing. I think it's the same with parents. So I think just keeping the communication open, and if your kid is like trying to overcome what you believe is overcompensating, they might not feel like it's overcompensating. And so I think in the same realm of children wanting to have open communication with their parents, I think it should, you know, if I'm talking about like, it's kind of like role reversal. So just having a conversation and figuring out, you know, why they might feel they need to overcompensate. And if they even feel like they're overcompensating, they might be like, I'm just being me. And so if they're like, I'm just being me, then having acceptance for something that might seem like overcompensation. I don't know if I'm answering that very well, just kind of that discussion.
Okay, I think, does Shannon want to explain, or was there anything that you missed? Oh wait, yeah, Shannon, you're on mute, sorry.
So we have kids, we're a couple, we're she, hers, and we have several children, and my daughter's 12 and she is really overcompensating. Like, she makes it a point to tell everybody all the time, I'm the straightest one in the group. I'm straight, I'm straight, I'm straight. And I get the idea that she's maybe embarrassed of us. I mean, that's just where I'm at with that. And I don't know how to help her with that, because we are who we are, and we're not trying to shove it onto them. But and then the other kids in our life are her daughter, they're all LGBTQ, but mine's the only one that's like, I'm straight, you know, and she gets really kind of angry about it a little bit. So I just don't know how to help her with that, or what to do to ease her mind about it. If you have any advice.
As a youth, I just wanted to say that, like, how old is the kid?
She's 12. She's 12. She's going into 6th grade.
Okay, so people, like, usually as, like, I've seen middle schoolers, and, like, they can be really, really exaggerative. And so, like, maybe, like, just keep in mind that, like, since they're 12 and stuff like that, like, they may be saying this because, like, they like to really, really emphasize a lot of things even when it's unnecessary. But in the very least, I really highly recommend that you just give gentle advice, saying you don't need to say this all the time, because like being straight, it is a little bit of a privilege. And if they are embarrassed of you, I do hope that they come to terms with it. But right now they might be in a literal psychological stage where they're still in denial of it, because being the age of 12, they're just starting to grasp the idea of abstract ideas like morality and all that. And so hopefully, if you can be patient with them, and if they're still doing this while growing up, even when they're just graduating high school and all that, then maybe it would help to just like have a sit down with them, talk to them about saying like why this is not exactly like they're already accepted as straight, so, and like how being queer is not exactly it. So if you can turn their perspective into one of support, keeping in mind that it might be a little bit frustrating at first, like hopefully that would help, specifically your 12-year-old to really understand that you're just people, and like they're also just a person too. So I hope that helps from my perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that being 12 is a terrible age. I remember being 12 and hating it. So yeah, they're probably reaching out and trying to like grasp at any identity things that make sense for them, and they're most likely straight. And so like, I guess like if you are surrounded by one thing, young kids have the chance to like have the tendency to rebel, I guess, to like want to rebel against like what is considered the normal for them. But I think you guys are already probably doing a great job, even just like asking this question and caring about like what's going on. So I would just reiterate what they were saying and just keep the conversation open, be accepting, like just be like, we get you're straight, thank you, congratulations. Yeah, good luck. Yeah,
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Sam and Chase. And I do want to turn it over to Dr. Goff so that way you can also ask your question.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a question from somebody who is participating, but they don't feel comfortable asking the question for themselves. And they are 9 years old, and they were hoping that you could, the panelists could address the issue of how do you handle it when folks don't use your correct pronouns at school?
If I may, like, okay, I just graduated, and like, of course, if this panelist is listening right now, like, thank you for asking that. I am literally just fresh out of not elementary, oh my god, high school graduation, and I've been misgendered a lot, and it really sucks. I know that, but the way that I like, even though I'm still working on it myself, the best thing for you is to just remind yourself that no one else can take your identity away from you, no matter how much they will push onto you. Like, even though I have a lot of people like thinking that like I'm female or like I'm feminine presenting, like, you just have to keep whispering to yourself and just like easing onto your mindset that they have a perspective that they've already learned, and whether or not they are stubborn, it's just a previously learned thing. And hopefully, if this is understandable, don't take it personally if you haven't come out to them, because there's a difference between if you've come out and they keep misgendering you and if you haven't yet. Because if they still keep misgendering you even after you came out, that's a different problem. That's a little bit transphobic. But if it's you haven't come out to people yet, you have to be a little bit patient, and hopefully like just talk to your friends, people that you love, and to reaffirm yourself that you are your identity. Like, for me, I am a man who wants to be like a little bit gender non-conforming, and even though I haven't transitioned fully yet, that takes time. And if someone else thinks that I'm not who I say I am, they can get a life. They can stop worrying about me and just be like, hey, listen, if you care so much about how I pee, I think you have more issues than worrying about like why I go with he, him pronouns. But I really hope that helps. And above all else, just talk to the people that accept you, and love yourself before you let people make judgments on you.
I'm gonna pop in real quick as a teacher. So first of all, 9 years old, I love that you're asking this question. I can't imagine. My nephew is 7, and I know it's got to be tough, especially when you're younger and you have like adults around you doing whatever they want, and you're like, ugh, freaking adults. Sorry about the adults, but as a teacher, hopefully you have it in school, at least one adult that you can talk to and talk to them about this situation. I know that I've had students come to me and say, some of these teachers are still misgendering me, they're not using my correct name, et cetera, et cetera. And I make a point to reach out to the group of people that these students are connected with, teachers, counselors, whatever, and really reiterate the fact that these are the pronouns that this student wants, this is the name that they want to go by. And I really advocate for these students that it's hard to advocate for yourself, especially to adults. It really is. Even as an adult, it's hard to advocate to other adults for people to, to act, to, kind of take this in. So hopefully where you are, there's an adult that you can trust to talk to and have them advocate for you. If not, email me and I will advocate for you. I will go to your school and I'll be like, these are the pronouns. Don't worry, I won't do that to you. But honestly, if you need an adult, I can be here for you as well. So if anybody needs an adult, I'll be here.
Yeah, thanks, Bull. Liam had a question too. So Liam, you asked, can we share a little bit more about our experiences specific in Northland or the Thornton area as members of the LGBTQ plus community? So yeah, is there anything else you all want to add that you didn't share?
I mean, okay, hi again, it's me. Like, okay, specifically as a student, I really want to emphasize that like it's still a little bit scary for me to be completely out, because even though I'm graduated, I really was still like really nervous to speak in Zoom calls, because like, oh God forbid if we were in person, like, oh God, I wouldn't be able to know how well I would be able to like handle being out and having people like I because it's a real thing that if I'm different from people, especially with gender and when people are confused, I'm afraid of being jumped right outside my house. And it's like, it's, yes, it is a little bit exaggerating, but there have been cases where people have been attacked for just being who you are. And I'm specifically in Northland, I'm really happy that in the very least, like that was just the negative part, but I'm very happy that that in my school there were a bunch of like teachers that were willing to be accepting, and even like just like Miss Bull, for example, like she's been absolutely wonderful, and I thank her so much for that, for having GSA and all. And the only thing that is like stopping me from being authentically me is that I've heard a lot of cis people, specifically teenage boys, just say, oh, why are they doing GSA, it's super annoying. Like, it's not it's not a trend, I swear to God. It is a life. It is literally how we live. And if you're annoyed by that, I cannot. They're lucky. Like my school's lucky that there are rules against violence. But okay, I'm not a violent person. Let me just put that out first. But but like literally, if like I don't want, like I really just want to be myself, but when there's people still saying like, oh yeah, Pride Month's annoying, it's not an issue with Northland, it's just with like some people. But overall, I loved being a person like living within this community that's really accepting. And thank you so much for having me as a panelist. It's one of the few years that, I mean, it's one of the few communities, yes, that I've been able to feel myself in. And I'm really glad that at least the officials have been really accepting of my identity and my choice to present as myself. And like in this city, like it's already progressing a lot compared to others, and I really thank like everyone who's in a position of power to include all of our voices. And it means a lot to be not only an LGBT person to present, but also someone that's young. And the fact that we have 9-year-olds like and possibly younger asking questions too, it means a lot that I feel seen, even though there's people that are still discriminatory of my identity.
Yeah, and I think I'll add to that too with Northland, like just with Northland Pride, you know, I'm so honored to be able to be working with the city, you know, and being able to have a Pride night and have this panel. And just like Mrs. Bull, like, you know, just you being out there and visible, it's amazing, you know, just have people so loving and affirming out there. And we need that. We need more love, you know, not hate. We need people to understand other people and welcome people, because that's how we build community. You know, that's how we love each other and thrive together, not put each other down. And so, yeah, I think with Northland, just the Pride events, you know, Northland's taking a stance saying we're, you know, going against racism. Like, Northland's a leader. I'm happy, and Thornton too doing the Pride flag. Like, it's awesome. It's stuff like this that shows that we matter.
I'm just going to second that. I don't live in Northland, but I've taught in Northland for 20 years. I love teaching at Northland High School. It's like they're my people. I've never felt so accepted at the school. I know there's still things that go on that need, you know, work, anti-racism, all the isms always need work. But I really, the students at Northland, Deja, Samuel, Nix, all the students have come through the doors that I've been able to connect with, just fill me up. And I really am so proud that I can say that I work and teach at Northland High School. And that's all I want to say. I'm really proud to be a part of that school and a part of that community.
I was gonna second, I guess, third. I don't know. Northglenn definitely has been really amazing. I was actually kind of maybe pleasantly surprised at just like how smoothly and how accepting things have gone. Like seeing all of the I have Northglenn pride signs like everywhere. It's so good. Hopefully we can get even more next year. Yeah, I think that Northglenn is definitely like taking a good step in the right direction. There's always more work that needs to be done, but I mean, they are an example, I think, for all other cities. So
Yeah, well, or go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna keep it short, but like I always felt like most comfortable whenever I went to high school because like it's where my close friends were, and they were very accepting of me, and like it was just very nice to go somewhere and like be accepted. And I wasn't like, I never told anyone what pronouns to use, like my teachers and stuff. So like whenever people use she, her pronouns, I kind of just brushed it off. Like at the time, like sophomore year and before that, I still used she, her pronouns, but like I was like I still kind of like it didn't, I just didn't like hear it whenever people referred to me as that. Like I would still listen, but like when it came to my senior years, when I actually fully came out, like yes, it was all through a computer screen, but I was glad that some of my teachers were actually asking preferred pronouns for their students, and that like really made me happy. So like Northland is definitely like very accepting, and they're of course still growing, like Chase and Miss Bull said. And yeah, that's my input on that.
Yeah, thanks, Nix. And I just want to thank all of our panelists tonight, and everyone for being in attendance. You know, it's us coming together, sharing who we are and understanding that is what helps grow us, you know, together. And so thank you all so much for being here. If you have any questions, you know, for the panelists, yeah, just let me know, or Rupa. Yeah, Rupa's our community engagement manager. So yeah, Rupa can forward it to us so that way we can get those addressed. And we look forward to seeing you all at Pride Night. It's going to be on the 26th from 5 to 9 p.m. You can get a ticket for, we'll have the silent disco, as the commissioner mentioned. So you want to get a headphone for that. We'll have a flash mob and then also a drag show. So don't miss out. Yeah, thanks for putting that in there. So yeah, thank you all so much, and I hope you have a good evening.
I want to thank Deja and Rupa for even like putting this all together, and probably Catherine Goff. I don't know who all had a hand in this, but I know definitely that Deja like was a superhero putting this together. And thank you everybody for coming. And all of my fellow panelists.
And of course, I thank all of you for sharing your stories. Chase, Nix, Deja, like specifically with all of your backgrounds, because like as Deja said, thank you so much for being vulnerable and for trusting your identities with this, because like it really means a lot to me as another LGBT person thank you so much for trusting us with coming out and all that. Like I cannot convey it that easily, but like with everyone else here too, I hope y'all will be safe if you are coming out soon, which you do not have to. Good luck with that, and have a wonderful Pride Month, everybody. Thank you so much for hearing whatever I spouted tonight and like everyone else's wonderful works. Everybody give it a hand. Woo.
Yeah, and thank you, Nix, too, for coming on like so last minute. Yeah, that shows so much courage. So and dedication.
Yes, of course. It was a pleasure to be here. I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to say, but it was really nice coming here tonight. So thank you again for inviting me.